I'm Aaron Meyer. You're listening to the 19-9 Podcast. Today we're looking back at Davidson's run to the Elite Eight. No, yeah, some guy named Stephen Curry. The casual way that they announced Curry's one of those first threes.
22 red. Curry, first good look, and hits.
We also discussed the best moments from the game and decide if we would want to pair Gus Johnson and Bill Walton. You mentioned, I just think this crew is really good. With Walton on this and Gus, it might have been too much. Now, on to the show.
Yeah, isn't it amazing when Michigan can keep this game to a 19-foot, 9-inch game inside that three-point line? It's all there.
Welcome to the 19-9 Podcast. We are going to talk Davidson here, and just specifically the Davidson team with Steph Curry. I've got Robert Wire here today. Let's just start out here setting the scene for us. What did you think of this game and these two teams? Because this Wisconsin team really stood out. Just doing a little background research on them, pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, they're the typical Wisconsin team, though, really, right? I mean, they had a better record than they had in a while, but like defense wins. Yeah. Offense is kind of suspect. Yeah, and I think that going into the game, that guy getting hurt really paid a big dividend in what happened. But this Davidson team, though, it's so much fun whenever you get a Cinderella story and then you have one of the greatest shooters ever in college. I mean, I think that just watching this game, just like, I know he isn't as polished as he is now in the NBA, but there's just so many things that he does in the game that you're just like, man, why didn't the scouts see that this was going to move on to the next level?
Shooting matters is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Yeah, well, so 24 straight wins for Davidson here. Wisconsin, though, one of only like a few programs in the country in the last couple of years. This is up to we're in 08 around here, with 30 wins, which is bizarre. 31-4. So it's like Carolina, Kansas, and then Wisconsin.
Oh, I mean, they had an unbelievable season. Yeah. I mean, I think that the beginning, we'll get into it, but I think they kind of were going a little too slow, and I think it was just like the perfect matchup for them to lose because of the personnel. Like, they didn't really post up that much. I think that if their big guys were more post up big guys, that would have really hurt Davidson.
Yeah, they had to just absolutely pound them into the ground.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. I did catch one other thing from the beginning, setting the scene, that I want to call a shout out to, because the Chucker did a short about Midnight Madness, and of course today is the kickoff of the season. But they shout out Lefty Drizel in there. I'm going to play a little clip, and then we'll talk just briefly about him.
So Davidson losing that game to North Carolina. Bob McKillop wasn't there at that time, but your former coach Lefty Drizel was the head coach at Davidson back then.
And the irony of it was that was a shot that probably drove Coach Drizel from Davidson to Maryland, and that game was played in College Park on the Cole Fieldhouse floor.
So crazy, right? Lefty is just one of those guys I think is a little underrated. I mean, invents Midnight Madness, is just a guy who embodied kind of that old school coach where you are promoter, you are a coach, you're a motivator, and you're a personality in and of himself. So he, people came to the game to watch him as much as some of the players on the court sometimes.
Definitely ahead of his time, right?
Definitely.
That would be something that you would see almost now out of some of the coaches besides then,
Yeah, no doubt about it. What'd you think about like the little stat? I have it in the doc about teams that are players that carried their team to this point. We're at the Sweet 16 here, and they obviously go on to the Elite Eight.
It's a pretty big list you got there. I mean, Bird obviously going to the championship, one of the greatest to play. Then you got Danny Manning, one of the greatest college basketball players to ever play. And then Camby we've already talked about the 96 UMass team. Man, after watching them, I don't want to get too much, but one of my favorite teams to go watch.
You want to talk about defense. The Marcus Camby, right?
Early time, the guys could lights out.
Yeah.
And then obviously Dwayne Wade, which we all know about Mr. Wade, and Carmelo Anthony. I mean, so
Curry fits on this list really well.
It definitely, this list, if you always say what carried on to the future, this list definitely carried on for Curry, right?
Yes. He will,
This was the perfect.
when they do the graphic for this year, they definitely need a little slot for Steph Curry on here. Bump somebody off there. Well, so getting into the game then, what jumped out at you that you were just like, okay, this is amazing. This is kind of what the game is going to be as you start to watch the game play.
It's kind of like what I said earlier about the personnel. It really shocked me that Wisconsin shot so many threes too. It felt like it was just a shootout, right? Like I just, I should have known better, but just being in the Big Ten, being an IU fan, dealing with Wisconsin, usually it's the big guys that can pound you underneath, right. And that's what I had forgot about the team until I started watching them again, and I remembered, so that's what really stuck out was how many threes, because I think I looked it up, and altogether that Davidson shot, 24 threes, and Wisconsin shot like half their field goals was threes too, which in 2008, that was before its time, right?
For sure.
Like,
and they were hitting in the first half, so it was legitimate that they were taking those, and then it just fell off the cliff at the second half. I had one, Michael Flowers, who I thought did an awesome job in the first half. He made the game close. He's got 11 at half. And then 1 in the second half. Curry has 11 at half and then 22 in the second half. So you can kind of see, like, sometimes the game is simple. It's just little teeny plays that end up to that larger margin, because it didn't feel like a huge blowout until the end, and it just started to become a bit of a runaway. Yeah, the first half, I had read that you had that stat out there, and I was kind of following it. And for a while there, for a little stretch, they were going back and forth. I don't know if you noticed it. Like Flowers was taking it at Curry, and Curry was making some shots. And I just think that Flowers wasn't that type of player, that prolific of a scorer. Right. At some point, it was going to come to a means, right? Like it had to come back down. It did. So, and guarding Curry, like they just talked about it during the game, right? Like how hard it was to fight through all the screens. It happens in the NBA now, but like in college, like that, you could just tell, like he's constantly moving in this game. Right. And if you're guarding him by the second half, you have to be exhausted, right? Yes, for sure. Well, let's listen to the first, because I want to get your take on the casual way that they announced Curry's one of his first threes.
22 red. Curry, first good look, and hits. Well, that time Curry ran Flowers off of 3 different screens before he got wide open, and it's all about the execution for Davidson in there. All right, what's your take on that? Pretty amazing to me. Oh, I definitely do. Oh my God, this game, as the game went on, it really brought back memories of whenever we watched the Michigan State with Magic and with Bird, the way like you could tell they just started lifting Curry up. Like every play he would do, it just became carried on to the next play. There was like more and more, like at the end they're winning, right? And like he makes the ridiculous pass, and they're just like, that's the magic of Curry. Yes, exactly. Like that's just what he does. The wizardry of Curry. That's what he does. We'll get to that. Don't worry. Amazing. What I thought is that, so of course he's had huge games from the jump in this series, right? He's had like 30 in the first game, 30 in the next game. So they're expecting it. And that's what came across to me, like, here we go. First time, runs off 3 screens, splashes a 3-pointer. Like that's super easy. And it's just the amazing, like the singular focus to stop a guy, and yet their inability. And he carries that to this day. Well, I think that for this game, Wisconsin's defense was so good. They held everybody to 53 points, I believe, for the season. Like they wanted to see what Curry was going to be able to do against a defense like this, right? And they didn't expect that he was going to blow up. And then, like LeBron James is sitting behind the bench. Yeah. And that just tells you how big a game this was, because, he's from Ohio. Yeah. Like he's a big Ohio State fan. Like, the magnitude of Davidson, the Cinderella story that he wants to go. And this is LeBron in 2008. What's he been in the league for like 4 years? So like it's like the peak of like the beginning of the peak, like where he's like the alpha, right? Yeah, he's about to go to the finals, right? His first finals. Yeah, run. So like the fact that he's there and like he makes that Cinderella
I say Cinderella, he makes that ridiculous layup, right?
Oh,
and LeBron's just like, wow,
I know.
how did he do that? You know, like that's just, I mean, from a player like that to be sitting there and watch and say something like that just shows how awesome of the move was, right?
Yeah, they loved that. Slipper graphic too. How many times they love doing that little spinny Cinderella slipper graphic?
He must have learned the English from school. He must be in an English class.
Oh, I love that stuff. That was pretty great. I did think too. One of the things I noticed was just the randomness again, like because this is what we love about the tournament too. But the randomness of it, right? Trayvon Hughes gets hurt and hurts his foot, and it's just such a inconsequential play. But again, he's unavailable. He's their second leading scorer, and now he's out. And he's probably would have spent time on Curry, and you run around those three screens and just wears you down eventually. So it's just those little things that add up to an upset or a loss like that. Was just stood out to me a little bit.
No, I mean, I think that's every year. You know, like what you were kind of saying, like in March Madness, like you could have the right setup, the right team. You guys could be, you know, in the upward trajectory of the team that year. And then all it takes is somebody getting hurt, right?
Right.
You know, I mean, I know that we've seen it a bunch, right? Like you could even just forget March Madness, just go to the Golden State Warriors when Durant and Clay got hurt, you know, like the magnitude of people getting hurt. And the funny part about it, like people remember that, but like this Wisconsin team, you know, unless you really broke it down and looked at it, they're probably going to forget he even got hurt. Yeah. They're just going to say, well, Curry, you know, he took him down and, you know, Wisconsin just choked.
Yeah.
You know, they're not
sure. You know, you simplify it. You know, the other thing I thought about was that the shooting contest aspect of it, I can't even remember if you already brought this up, but we've been talking about it, you know, before we even got on, is that you get into, you have the other team hit a couple shots and you tend to move away from like what your specific advantage is, right? Slowing the game down, just pounding them inside, and you can get into that mentality like we got to hit a three and we got to get it all back at once, and that ends up falling into their strength, and that can really get you.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely should have used their size better. I mean, Wisconsin definitely had the size advantage, right? So, I mean, if I'm Wisconsin this game, I'm probably trying to get Curry matched up to some big guy and just trying to post him up and get him in foul trouble, you know, or something. You got to do something to try to stop, you know, him.
Something.
Yeah.
They didn't do it. Let's go to our 19-9 moment. I think, again, this is great because we just got to work in another Curry splash. Like it seems like every time he hits one, it is consequential too. It's not just that they're 3 points, but they feel big, right? They just feel bigger.
Well, I think it's because you feel it coming. Like I think because he's had these outbursts, like where he goes on these runs, like you feel like, oh, here it comes. Now they're in trouble. Yeah,
there's a little string here, a couple together. So let's listen to this.
Pro line is 23 feet 4 inches. The college line is 19.9, 19 feet 9 inches.
Landry with 6. Curry lets it go again and buries it.
I told you, just a little bit of daylight, just a sliver.
That's all
that
he
young man needs.
Just like his old man. 51-45. Curry has 20.
So just gets right in there, right? Like just a little bit of daylight, but that is truly what Curry has become, right? Like it feels like you have to be on him at all times. Every time he's open, like I have never seen a player like that in the history of basketball where if he's open, I'm like, oh no, you know, like everybody at some point you're like, you know, let him have it. Let him have it every once in a while. Or give him a couple shots. But him, every time he's open, you're like, oh my God, go get him. And it always feels like a moment too late.
And he's so good at being able to get a shot off by just you making a little bitty mistake. Like, you know, you fall for a juke barely and he's got it off. Like he's so good at creating isn't a bunch of space. He's just so fast.
So fast. Yeah. And this is like pre all his workout stuff. So.
Yeah.
Okay. I got a question for you. Does playing in a football stadium matter? Because it didn't seem to affect him all that much. So is it the football stadium? Because that inevitably gets brought up every single year. Yet it seemed like he was all right shooting in a football stadium.
I don't think it's going to matter. I mean, I mean, the floor is still wood, right? Like they're still, I mean,
Yeah.
No, I want to say no.
All right, let's go to our next category. What aged the best? Obviously, the 3-point shooting, I think we've covered that. How do we feel about the longer shorts? We're in the short shorts, or kind of, what do we call this? The medium shorts era. Yeah. Not all the way up to the ones that Larry Bird and Magic would wear back in the day, but they're pretty short. Durant's got some short shorts on right now. What do we think about the long shorts? And
they were going really long in this game. Davidson definitely was not. Yeah, I think they were a little too long.
Too long.
Yeah.
See, I was the opposite. I was feeling like I'm ready to bring those back. Like, when are those coming back? Because I feel like everything inevitably comes back around. So it's going to take the right team. But it feels like at some point that's going to come back.
I'm okay with like the right above the kneecap. But like once it gets like 3 inches below the kneecap, that's usually when I say it's too long.
I loved it. I'm going to skip the coaching moments because oddly, unless you just want to hit on kind of how inconsequential the coaches felt, because they didn't stand out that much. They tried to talk them up a little bit, but I didn't see any like moments where it felt like they changed the landscape of the game.
The only thing I would say is I thought that Davidson did a really good job at taking advantage of fast breaks and not letting Wisconsin get back. And you saw a lot of threes they got open because of it. And they talk about it in the game because Wisconsin's defense was so good. If you let them get set, it was so hard to score on them. So that would probably be the one coaching thing that I'd say that Davidson did really good at, was take advantage of those situations.
Makes sense. All right, let's hit another Curry soundbite here.
Richards, he's got Curry on the wing. He's going to spot up. There he goes. Oh, he lets it fly again and rips it. Folks, we got a star in the Motor City. 54.
Oh man, right? Like, unbelievable. He's just absolutely nails it, and everybody's ready for it. So he throws off the pump fake, and he lets the guy go by. There it goes, just flying up there. Of course it goes in. It's just the timing of it was unbelievable.
No, I'm sure we'll bring it up because we always do. If we think that we should have a different broadcaster, but I thought the broadcasters in this did a really good job. I really do. I mean, I don't think Walton would have made it better. I think they did really good at like bringing the excitement of the situation out, I believe.
Well, Gus Johnson is an absolute legend. So let's get another call in from him. This is the play of the game for me, and this is the one you referenced where LeBron they cut to LeBron and see his reaction too, and you're just like, wow, if LeBron is feeling that way, we're really on to something.
60-46. Here comes Richards. Finds a cutting Curry. Oh, my goodness. Young fella.
This has been the Stephen Curry show. And which game in the NCAA tournament thus far hasn't been the Stephen Curry show? And he's demonstrated again, not only is he a pure shooter, but he's fearless going into the lane with a variety of acrobatic shots.
From us national media types.
Well, his record speaks for itself.
Yeah, and so I just thought those two together were just incredible, right? They build it up and then just kind of land it with Len Elmore just kind of talking us through the excitement of that he brings to it.
Definitely. You cut it off before he talked about the English though, going to class.
I did. I know. You're right.
Which really good. Yeah, they were just 1-2, like you said. They just made the game really fun to watch.
For sure. All right, let's talk. Let's do the Walton clip, and then we'll get into these two guys.
Okay.
Bill, we're at Stanford today, and we have got the game of the millennium tonight.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Learn to love your job, love pressure. Let's go.
I think can succeed here. Barack Obama. I don't think he's going to coach. So
well, you keep saying that, but why? Why are you so negative? Why do you just turn down? Party on. It's a wonderful day. It's Oregon. The sun was out. Come on.
Gets me every single time
because it's so ridiculous.
100% every time. But you mentioned, I just think this crew is really good with Walton on this and Gus. It might have been too much. Len has a really nice call on this, and I think he kind of brings a little bit, like grounds it a little bit, where he's like has a little bit of seriousness, but it's kind of nice because it makes it feel more consequential, I guess.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of like I don't know how to say it. One was definitely out there, and the other one's kind of brought it back there. Like you said, it had been too much with Walton. I think that who knows what they would have been talking about by the end of it. And this was the kind of game that you really, I mean, besides the last about 5 minutes of the game, like you didn't need.
There was enough going on, right?
We didn't need anything else.
Didn't need it. Yeah. Okay, I got a buy or sell take. They keep expanding, talking about expanding the tournament, right? Like we've already expanded it once. It's on the table. Like, should we expand the tournament more? This is my take for you to sound off on. Should they keep the majority of the tournament the same, and then at the end, maybe I don't know if it's the Final Four or the Elite Eight, play a small series. So play like a best out of three or something like that. Because this was a pretty good game, like an interesting dynamic. And I'm just wondering, instead of diluting it and bringing in more teams, so that teams that are like, 18 and 17 are in the tournament, like who cares about them? Would it be more interesting to see games like this back to back? So it's like, okay, Wisconsin, the next game's got to come back, figure it out, try to beat them, just so you've got the randomness of the Cinderella part, which inevitably is amazing, right? And there's a team like Davidson gets in there and then makes a run like this, which is awesome. But you just have the ability to watch teams adjust and try to hone in and see if they can change the dynamic, I guess.
In my opinion, I would say no. But
would you expand the tournament then?
That's what I was going to get to that. I was going to say the reason why I say no to that is because I think that would take away from the Cinderella stories that we would get, because I think that if you played a team like 3 times,
but
the better team might win.
I don't want it at the beginning.
No, but
the first rounds are still the same. I'm just talking about like maybe even like Final Four, so like you're already down, like the Cinderella portion is over anyways, for the most part. Like once in a while there's a Loyola that gets there or somebody else that gets there.
I kind of like the one,
but it's pretty rare.
I like the one. You have one shot. I don't think you need to expand that. What I would think that would be really neat.
If you had the choice, though, they're expanding.
I would expand, and how I would expand. This is how I would do it. I would get rid of the conference tournaments.
Yeah,
and I would have your top 64 that would make the tournament normally, right? And then maybe have like a 20-team tournament for the last like 8 spots or whatever, or 30-team tournament.
Yeah,
like where like people will watch those tournaments to get into the tournament, to where the teams that are the closest can play each other. Because let's be honest, the conference tournaments really just don't do a whole lot.
Yeah.
See
it. That's the opposite for me, because I'm more interested in the conference tournament than
most people aren't.
Than some of the first round games. Like some of the first round games, I'm just like, if there's going to be an upset, obviously I'm keeping an eye on that. But some of them are just horrible. Like they throw in a 16 seed, and obviously it's fun to have the narrative, the David versus Goliath. But again, there's literally one team that's won that game in the history of the tournament. So the chances of it happening are almost zero. And again, I get the idea of it, but like, I don't need more of those games. Like I don't need more assurity. I want more like of the high level play that you get at the end of the tournament potentially.
Well, my thought on that is like, we'll just use the Big Ten as just like a reference, right? Mm-hmm. Would you rather, if IU wasn't going to make the tournament, or any team in the Big Ten wasn't going to make the tournament, right? Would you rather them be in a tournament where they're playing somebody besides a Big Ten team? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it would be more fun to see, like, we don't need to see them, like if it was Indiana, we don't need to see them play Purdue again.
Right.
Like, it would be cooler to see them play St. Joe's. If St. Joe's is this, they've won 20-some games, it'd be a lot funner to see them play them, because, like, we've already seen them play these conference teams. Like, if these teams are that bad, or then they shouldn't even be in a tournament at all.
I see what you're saying.
Where it'd be like, you wouldn't want to watch it, but say that that IU was in this tournament that was 30 teams to get in the tournament. Yeah. I'm sure you'd watch it then.
Yeah, maybe.
It'd be more exciting.
I would have to watch it.
Well, I'm just saying, I think it'd be more exciting than watching them play a tournament with teams that are already in it.
I got you. I think there's something there. I don't know, but I don't want to. I'm fine with it where it is. Like I think it would potentially start to lose me, and that's what I don't want, because it's like my favorite couple weeks of the year, and the last thing I want is to be like tuning out to.
I think there's plenty of games. I mean, I'm not against expanding, but I don't really think it needs to be done. I think 68's plenty. It's not like college football, where there's 4 top 4 teams, and
that's
then basically you lose the second game of the season, you lose 2 games, your season's over. Yeah. To me, like, it'd be better, like they're talking about like a 10-team, deal or whatever they're going to do. Like, it seems like that would be better. Plus, in college football, think about all the bowl games they have, right? Like, if it was a playoff thing, people are going to watch that and care. They don't care about bowls anymore,
well,
right?
I mean, you care if your team is in it, right?
Well, no, I'm saying, though, but, like, I'm saying, like, these teams that play in these bowl games that are, like, the 8th best team, like, the teams that, like Notre Dame say that Notre Dame was playing in a bowl game and it didn't matter. So it doesn't really do anything for me, the win or lose.
All right, last thing, I gotta get back to my point though. So you're telling me you'd rather watch like some random teams play in a pre-NCAA tournament, one and done, rather than watch this Davidson team play potentially 2 more games against Wisconsin?
Well, this was a Sweet 16 game, so they wouldn't have been playing.
That's true.
In your theory.
Okay, fine. Against Kansas, they lose to Kansas. They would have got another shot at them. Like,
no,
you don't think Curry would come back and maybe have like that one moment? Like, now you're at like elite level. Like, you want to see those.
But where
guys
do you
perform.
stop it at though?
Like I said, I would throw it at the Final Four. At first and just see how it goes. It's such a important product. I don't think they would do it. Like, it's just easier to expand down than to change up the format. It's just a thought. It's just a thought experiment. But let's switch gears and finish here. What made this game iconic or memorable? Like, for you, I mean, LeBron James is in the audience. I think that's a important thing to say. So there was some importance felt at this game. What was it that made it? And could you back it without trying to remove like what we know about Curry now? What what did it feel like if you're putting yourself like in watching that
in that
game
moment?
Back then? Yeah.
Well, in that moment, I'm sure that I was probably extremely excited myself because I'm a short guy, and it's like, look at this little guy just dominating, right? Like, because that's part of college basketball that I love, right?
Yeah.
Like, the NBA, you don't see it nearly as much. The little guy that's like just does it all, can change the course of the game, right? Like, and Curry was so fascinating, like the things that he could do, and he was at Davidson, right?
Yeah.
Like, and this game was like the moment where everybody was like, man, this guy's for real. And then he comes out and does what he does. And they're like, man, he's going to be really good. But then yet he still did not get drafted as high as he should have. That's what's so crazy about it, right?
Yeah, he goes 7th. He goes behind Johnny Flynn, Ricky Rubio.
Oh my gosh. Imagine how upset them fans are. But anyway.
Well, the GM got himself fired for that. So, he got Ricky Rubio. He actually had 2 picks. And so he passed on Steph Curry twice.
Yeah.
So he could have had 2 chances at him. He said, no, thank you, twice. He watched all this and he's like, I'm good.
Well, I mean, when you're watching
we don't need that. We'll take 2 guys who can't shoot and figure it out.
What was it was his ankles and they didn't think he could play good enough defense? Is that basically? Because, I mean, he's a good passer too. Yeah. So he's an unbelievable shooter and a good passer. So,
he hits like a bunch of cool shots too. He has like a weird turnaround bank shot.
Oh yeah.
So it wasn't just like he was standing and
his footwork was good already.
Yeah,
like,
fine.
I don't know what. I guess this is the ankles.
Small college too, like coming from a small college. Lillard had the same thing where you're like, can that translate in the NBA? That you have that kind of thought in your head. But let's get out of here on another Gus Johnson call. Thanks for joining us tonight. We've had a bunch of good episodes lately. If you haven't listened to Lee Ellis talk about his travels around the world, we've got another Chucker short coming up about the aircraft carrier game that watch that. That's coming up this week, and we'll post that. We posted that.
I was gonna say if you listen to the Lee Ellis one, go in and check him out. He's going everywhere.
Sure.
He's got some really good stuff that's came out already.
I'm enjoying it. I wish I could have played in some of those games.
With the chick,
yeah, exactly.
That was really good. You see,
so
awesome.
Great. Yeah, so great.
Spicy Curry.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to the 19.9 podcast. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do. And while you're at it, leave us a rating or review. 5 stars only, like the basketball camp. We also have links to all of 19.9 social media so you never miss a release. Until next time.